بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Welcome everybody to the Safina Society Nothing But Facts live stream in a heat wave in the great state of New Jersey. On a day in which, we're on and off in July, the month of July, just to give you some information and to give you some scheduling. This is our only stream of the week. We then have no streams the entire next week. We are then on for the 8th and 9th of July. And then I'm heading to Abner for the first time, the American Pakistani Physicians Association. I'm basically going to schmooze with them, talk to them about Darul Fath and get them to like our stuff. And then get their support, because these are the people who support our community. The Pakistani physicians, they built up all the organizations here are based on Pakistani physicians. And then we have a huge weekend coming up, inshallah, on July 11th. And I'm giving you a pre-announcement right now. This is the pre-announcement. We're still putting this together, but it is in motion. So that you all know that the famous Hanafi scholar, Dr. Salah Abul Hajj, is booked to be at NBIC July 11, 12, 13. And then he'll, inshallah, be going to 2 other locations. But this is just the pre, so that we can get everyone to sign up and get everybody to come to this Hanafi intensive. The weekend after that, Sheikh Mehdi Laq for a tafsir intensive. So we have 2 intensives back to back in the great state of New Jersey at our masjid, the New Brunswick Islamic Center, which is where Safina Society is headquartered. Okay. And then we're back on the 22nd, 23rd, 24th. Then who wants to go meet up in Turkey at Dar al-Fuqaha? I'll be teaching once a week there for 5 days. And you could go meet us there at the Dar al-Fuqaha and just go to Turkey for the fun of it. And then we're back. August, regular full lineup. But today, right off the bat, we got news here in the East Coast. And that news is going to be analyzed for us by a young Harvard genius by the name of Mussab. He is also a candidate. Okay? He's a candidate for mayor of Jersey City, but he's going to be talking to us today about the primary victory, the Democratic primary. Maybe can we call it a trouncing? The full numbers aren't in, but they pretty much know he won. And that is Mamdani in New York. Let's bring on. Are we ready to bring on our guest, Omar? Yep. All right. Let us bring on the mayoral candidate for Jersey City, and that is coming up in a couple months. Mussab Ali, come on. Welcome to the Safina Society Nothing But Facts live stream. How are you today?
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Shadee. Thank you for having me.
All right. Tell us straight off the bat. Let's first talk about Mamdani, and then we'll talk about you. Tell us about Mamdani. Where did he come from? Where did he come out of? And how did he trounce all of these fake Israel-supporting puppets that are running for mayor in New York? And firstly, for the people who are listening, because a lot of our audience are not from the area, New York State contains New York City. New York City consists of 5 boroughs. It's the most important position pretty much on the East Coast is mayor of New York City. Would you agree to that?
I think so.
One of
Probably
the most,
that and governor of New York.
Governor of New York and mayor of New York City. We're talking about 5 boroughs, and these 5 boroughs probably are bigger than the population of the rest of the state, probably. All right, tell us, where did Mamdani come from?
Yeah, I mean, subhanAllah, I think the most fascinating thing about this election is 4 months ago, there was a poll in February. That poll had Mamdani at 1%.
Wow. That's insane. 4 months ago?
4 months ago, in February, there was a poll. Mamdani was at 1% and Cuomo was at 33%. That was in round 1. And that poll basically had Cuomo, up by 40 points, right, over the person who was in second place. So, people are sort of looking at this and saying, wow, this race is over. It's 4 months until the election. There's no shot that this guy has any chance of winning. He's an interesting idea. And he talked about this last night, right, where people were like, oh, it's an interesting idea, but there's no chance he actually wins this election. They spent cumulatively in super PAC funds, right? So remember, there's the campaign funds, and then there's outside money that's spent. So in New York City, campaigns are capped at $8 million. Mm-hmm. So there's a public financing system that says if you take money, it gets matched by the city. So let's say you donated $250 to Mamdani, that actually became $2,000 that would donated to him. But in return for doing the public finance system, the max is $8 million.
Question.
So he spent, yes.
$8 million per person, per donor, or total?
No, $8 million total for each candidate.
Okay.
So each candidate they can spend is $8 million.
Okay.
So they spend, Mamdani spends $8 million. Cuomo spent $8 million, and then in addition, had an additional $25 million that was spent on his behalf.
So the candidate gets $8 million, but a PAC can actually go and canvass for him for unlimited amount, but he just has nothing to do with it. Is that right?
He has nothing to do with it, right?
Yeah.
That's the
quote unquote nothing to do with it. Yeah.
What's fascinating is, for instance, right, and I think we may have discussed this briefly, is Bloomberg is one individual. He's the former mayor of New York City, as some people may remember. He donated $8.3 million himself. So consider you had 18,000 people who donated to Mamdani, who helped him to raise $8 million. And on the other side, you had one billionaire trying to buy this election with $8.3 million that he donated to Cuomo.
We had and it failed completely.
And it failed. I mean, I think that's the most powerful thing about this is, he is somebody who stood on his values, right? Yeah. He was authentic. He talked about issues. I mean, look, this is someone that they asked the question to, what is the first country you would visit as the mayor of New York City? And he said, I would stay right here in New York City. And they said, well, do you think that Israel has a right to exist?
Yeah.
I mean, a fascinating line of questioning, right? That only gets asked to somebody who's from a Muslim background, mm-hmm. continually smearing him as an anti-Semite, continuing to go after him and saying, look, this is someone who is not fit to be the mayor of New York City. And the voters overwhelmingly rejected that message. And I think that is the most inspiring part about this, is people saw through the rhetoric. I mean, I actually think a bigger storyline in this is, the ways that institutional media really failed. The New York Times came out and said, do not rank Mamdani.
They said what?
They put out an editorial that said, do not rank Mamdani.
Wow.
So remember, in New York City, you get 5 choices on the ballot, right? You don't have to just vote for one person. You get to vote up to 5. The New York Times literally says, do not put this guy on your ballot.
Wow. That's crazy.
Right? Bill Clinton came in and endorsed Cuomo. Jim Clyburn, who's, a very well-respected, black politician from, I believe it's South or North Carolina, he comes out or endorses Cuomo. All the labor unions are basically behind Cuomo. I mean, this guy had the juggernaut of the entire institutional machine behind him. Mm-hmm. And he still got absolutely crushed. I mean, to put in perspective, by the way, politically, where we expected the numbers to be. We expected Mamdani to be down by 4 or 5 points in the first round. And the speculation was, if he was down by 4 or 5, he could maybe win by 51, 52% in the last round. He was up by 7.
Insane.
I mean,
Insane.
it is unreal, unfathomable. Like no one expected results to come out last night. I mean, I personally, I put out a tweet as soon as the polls closed. I was actually canvassing for Mamdani. So I was out there on election day. And on election day, I mean, you could feel the energy, right? Like, at the polling station I was at, there were four people there from Mamdani. Nobody was there for Cuomo, even despite all the money that he's spending, right? No one was
Hmm.
out there for Cuomo. So I had a sense, I was like, you know what? Like, there's something in the air tonight in New York City. Like,
Hmm.
there's something, but like even I thought like, all right, put out a tweet, we'll discuss this next week. Like, we did our job. Next week we'll find out. And then to go to the watch party and Cuomo called it. He was like, look, I can see there's no way for me to win. There's no pathway for victory. I just think it's
Insane.
incredible like, I mean, like it has shaken politics in this country and this world forever.
Omar, can you kindly put up a picture of Mamdani so people they don't know him outside of the local area? Because as you said, 4 months ago, this person had no chance. And then he made big waves when he said globalize the intifada, and everyone said, he just shot himself in the foot, he's done. I think that boosted him even more. And on top of that, this clip is going around, which is so absurd. It's one of the worst clips you'd ever seen, most pathetic clips you've ever seen, where you have about 7 candidates, and they're basically given APAC Zionist softballs down the middle to just give your loyalty to Israel. Just show us that you love the Jews and the Zionists. And basically they're saying, what is the first place you're going to visit after you get elected, if you were to get elected? And everyone says Israel. They all say Israel, 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 Israel. And I'm thinking to myself, you're not running for foreign office, right? You're running for mayor of New York City. You're here to serve the regular people in New York City. You're not here to serve like, all right, explain something to me. Maybe you know something better than me. What is the business between the mayor of New York and foreign nations? What is their business?
No, I mean, again, the only thing that's there is there's a significance to where the mayor of New York City visits. And I think to your point that you're making, right? I mean, like they were like tripping over each other to say, look, I'm going to go to Israel. I'm going to go to Israel for the third time.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to Israel for the fourth time, right?
I'm going to have my
And I think,
son's bar mitzvah there. Yeah.
yeah,
One
I
of
think
them said.
what's so fascinating about this though is, Mamdani actually did very well among Jewish voters because he tackles anti-Semitism head on and he says, look, like this is something that matters to me. Right. And I actually personally believe, right, anti-Semitism and Islamophobia are sort of like two heads of the same snake.
Yeah.
Right. And like this is the kind of hatred that people have towards people who are not like them, who pray a little differently, right? And so we should be combating anti-Semitism. But then when you throw around anti-Semitism by saying someone critiques the policies of the government of Israel, I mean, you lose all meaning. And I think that's what you saw is people kept saying he's an anti-Semite, he's an anti-Semite. And people said, like, where show us evidence of him being anti-Semitic. And, Jewish New Yorkers like Brad Lander, I give him a lot of credit. Brad Lander was the guy who he finished third. He cross-endorsed Mamdani. He's a Jewish New Yorker. And he defended Mamdani over and over again. He said, no, Jewish New Yorkers need to vote for someone like Mamdani, not someone like Cuomo.
Tell us what are Mamdani's main points that he wants to bring to the table in New York.
Yeah, so he has a great plan. It's very comprehensive. He talks about freezing the rent,
Say
right?
again.
Freeze the rent.
Freeze the
So
rent. Okay.
yeah, so 2 million units in New York City are actually rent controlled, and the rent board is controlled by the mayor of New York City. So he can
Okay.
actually literally freeze the rent. He can make sure your rent doesn't go up, right? He talks about universal childcare, right? So providing childcare for people in New York City. He talks about fast and free buses, right? Making the MTA free, right? I mean, these are the kinds of things that he's messaging to people, and they're saying, "Wow, you know what? Like, this guy's actually going to help us in like making sure that New York City can be a place that's affordable, and make sure that's a place where we can actually like grow up and have our families." So I think like that kind of politics of affordability and focusing on a clear message, like that is the same thing that I think we've been duplicating in Jersey City, and I think that's the thing that's going to win elections, right? Is like people I think get so caught up, especially Democrats gets caught up in like the culture wars, right? Like they're talking about these issues related to like how do we talk about the LGBTQ issue? How are we talking about women's sports? I mean, I think those issues are really so much of a distraction from like what people actually care about. Like I think on the day to day, people are worried about, listen, can I pay my rent? Can I afford, to buy the groceries? Will I be able to like have a luxury once in a while, right? I mean, I think about, those kitchen table conversations where residents are struggling paycheck to paycheck. You think about, a kid and promising them to go to Disneyland and knowing in the back of your head, like you can't afford to do that. Right? I think that's what people are really worried about. Like that is the real problems New Yorkers and everyday Americans are facing. It's not about these sort of culture war issues that I think have sort of distracted from the main message Democrats should be fighting for.
So, New York's income comes from taxes. If they're going to make childcare free, or they're going to make it, and what else did you say free? The buses. Mm-hmm. So what are they going to reallocate? How are they going to reallocate those funds? Where is it going to come from? It's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah. So this is the other part of his platform that I think was fantastic, is he talks about the people who will pay for this are the wealthy, right? So he talks about an increased tax on the top 1% of New Yorkers, right? So he says, look, they'll pay an additional 2% flat fee, which is $20,000, which like if you're making $1 million a year, like what's $20,000, right? Sort of a rounding error. And then he talks about increasing the corporate tax to the same rate as it is in New Jersey. And the argument he makes is, look, it's not about corporations who just are in New York City. It's anyone who wants to do business in New York City will have to pay this tax. And like, who is going to leave a market of 9 million people?
Of course,
right? I mean, so they're going to do it. And so he talks about the ways that you can raise the money from these corporations and the 1% to then be able to fund these ideas that make lives easier for, everyday people. I mean, what we've seen, especially in America, right, is there's something called the Gini coefficient, which is the level of inequality in this country. And it's continued to grow, especially after COVID. It's really skyrocketed, right? The rich have gotten much richer and the poor continue to be poorer. And so, I think a lot of people are fed up with these politics where both parties seem to be claiming to represent everyday people, and you're in the pockets of billionaires. And that is what he fought against, right? He's like, look, I am fighting for you. These are my ideas, and I'm telling you who's going to pay for it. And those people, they don't like me, and they're going to spend a bunch of money against me. And they did. I mean, they spent millions of dollars to try to deplete this message. But, there's this saying that I really like, which is like, it's really expensive to lie, but it's cheap to tell the truth, right? And his truth was something that people heard, and when the second they heard it, they're like, look, this is my guy. I'm going out for him.
Do you think they fought against him because of his image and his name and his background, or because of his message and his taxes?
I think it's a combination, right? I think it's a combination. I mean, Letitia James, when she was introducing him, I remember I was like, honestly, I was getting emotional as she was introducing him, because the introduction she makes is, they said he was too young. They said he was too inexperienced. They said that he didn't have the right name. And now I'm introducing to you the Democratic nominee for mayor of New York City.
Wow.
And I think about that, and it's like, look, subhanAllah, 20 years ago, right? Like post 9/11, could you imagine New York City having a Muslim mayor?
No, it's unimaginable.
Unimaginable, right? Like, I mean, I just think about what that was 20 years ago to where we are today, that the largest city in the country will have a Muslim mayor, inshallah. I mean, hopefully all goes well going into November. There's very small chance, that, something crazy happens, but assuming all goes well, and I mean, based on what the Mamdani team has done thus far, I think they're in good shape going into November. I think it's gonna be the first Muslim mayor of the largest city in America.
I think you could also say the two largest cities in the hemisphere, London and New York. Right. London has Sadiq Khan, who is of a Muslim background, Pakistani Muslim, and Mamdani is an East African, originally Indian.
Yes, East African, originally Indian. Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you actually tell our viewers a little bit about his background?
Yeah. So his family is actually Gujarati Indians, which is very uncommon. Were forced to move, sort of relocated to Uganda. And that's where Mamdani was born. And, it's fascinating. His parents sort of meet because his mom is like a film producer. His father sort of learns about this film. His parents meet. I mean, it's, his background, I think, is fascinating because it's also, I made this tweet today, and I heard this, during our watch party. Republicans, if you think about what they used to say about Obama, right? They're like, Obama is not born in America, right? He was born in Africa. Obama's a socialist. Obama's a Muslim.
Yeah.
Literally, Mamdani is a Muslim socialist who was born in Africa
Yeah.
and is now actually the mayor of New York City. I just think it's incredible that like what they thought Obama was, this man
Yeah.
is actually,
Actually
and
is.
he won this race. Yeah.
Which means that mayor is going to be the ceiling for him because he can't be a governor or a president or senator or congressman, correct?
So he can do everything up to president. So he could be the senator of New York City one day. I
Okay,
mean, of
just
New
can't
York.
be president.
He can't be the president. Yeah.
Okay, can't be president, and of course can't be vice president.
Right.
All right, so all right, tell us more about him. What did he study? How old is he?
So he's 33 years old.
Okay.
I don't remember what he did his undergraduate in, but he went to Bowdoin College, and then he started working campaigns. So Ali Najmi, who spoke very briefly at the event last night,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's where he sort of got his start. He worked for this guy who was running for city council,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a 10, and they've called this like a 10-year project, right? That for 10 years, Mamdani has sort of been in political organizing, in progressive campaigns, working towards like, building towards this bigger project. And the 10-year project ends with him being at the top, the king of New York City right now.
And tell me something. In the 4 months, what were the nodes that bumped him up and got him attention, let alone likability and voters? Because 4 months is such a small amount of time. So there had to have been some nodes, some major things that happened that bumped him up this way.
Yeah, I mean, I think the public financing was really big for him, like the incredible way that he raised money,
Mm-hmm.
right, from everyday people. Like that was incredible what he did. His videos went extremely viral. I mean, this was someone that like showed up all over our feeds. I mean, I'm sure you saw him, you're just scrolling, like you would see a Mamdani video collaborated with Subway Takes, collaborating with, Pop Crave, collaborating with, models. Like this guy was literally everywhere. And so his social media team did an incredible job. And I think the icing on top was he did this walk from the top of Manhattan all the way down to the
Oh, he
Battery.
walked. Okay.
He walked. It was a 13-mile walk, right? And he literally like films the whole thing, sort of like lets people know like, hey, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna like walk down the entire city because like I'm a man of the people. And Dr. Shadee, what's so inspiring to me about that is literally 2 days before that, he had done a video where he talks about, an assassination attempt, like people talking about trying to assassinate him. So some people, right, like people are going to offer, like, physically threaten your life. They sort of hide away, right? Like no one would have blamed him to say, look, you hired security detail, you should have hide away. But he is such a man of the people that like people are threatening his life. And he's like, you know what I'm going to do?
Mm,
I'm gonna do a walk starting at 7 p.m. until 2 a.m. in the morning and walk in the streets of my city to let them know that this city belongs to us.
yeah, that's
I mean,
powerful.
subhanAllah, man. I
That's
mean, I
powerful.
just think that, he talks about this idea that like being a good Muslim is about being a good person.
Yeah.
And I think he really embodies that.
So people are wondering about his personal life and things. The way I look at it is that in the realm of politics, it's at the broadest level. That just to have somebody of an ethnic background with a Muslim name is going to be beneficial to regular Muslims. The world is going to see that these people have a place here, and that's my view of it. That's how I look at it. So I don't penetrate any more than that, and I don't expect any more than that, because some people in our chat are asking like, what are his Islamic positions? So my view of it is this: that I just look at it that you don't want to feel like an outsider in the country that you live in. One of the ways towards that is to have Muslim representation in these places, and as long as a person is, as you're saying, not oppressing, not selling out, I think is a big deal. Not selling out to oppression that we're seeing in Palestine and Gaza. Why don't you talk to us a bit about his stance there and how bold he was to talk about that? And I wonder if some of his advisors said to him, hold it up a little bit, tone it down a bit.
Yeah. I mean, look, I also will say this, my personal perspective on this is like, we don't expect politicians to be our leaders in our faith, right? Like that is not their job. They didn't sign up to be like a Qari or a Sheikh or something. They signed up to be a politician, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we should not be taking our Islamic principles from our politicians. That's why we have Islamic instructors. And I think that what he occupies is this sort of political arena where he changes what's okay and comfortable for us to say, right? And so on the Palestine issue, right? I mean, like, this is a guy who very openly said, if Netanyahu steps foot in New York City, I would have him arrested.
That's insane.
Said
That's
that openly,
amazing.
right?
That's amazing.
He is
That's
someone
amazing.
who,
I
on
would
stage,
love to see that actually happen.
well, and then he said on stage, he was like,
Yeah.
"Look, I believe Israel has a right to exist, but only as a right, well, to exist not as a Jewish state, but as a right as a state with like equal rights for everybody."
Yeah.
Right? Has like,
Yeah.
doubled down on that position of like, look, like that is my position on this. When they asked him to condemn the state, like the statement, globalize the Intifada, I mean, he said, look, I think this means different things to different people. Right? And so like even people who said, oh, he shot himself in the foot, to your point, like he sort of was like, no, like, listen, I'm not here to police people's speech. Like they can sort of like, have this sort of position that they want to have. And so this is someone who has been extremely bold on this issue,
Yeah.
has been unapologetic on this issue, and I think is a huge win for our community,
Yeah.
right? To like think about, it used to be said, I mean, even to me, when I was before I announced my campaign for mayor, October 7th happened, and I had advisors who said to me, like, look, you went to Harvard, you beat cancer, you've been elected, like, just do not talk about Palestine. Right? Like that is sort of like the political wisdom around this country. That's what it was around Palestinian people, that they were a
Hmm.
liability. And Mamdani has literally showed, like, no, it is a strength for me to show that I have a backbone, that I'm willing to stand for what I believe in, and that I'm willing to stand for humanity.
I think the establishment on political correctness are way behind, and my evidence for that, my source for that, is social media, TikTok and Instagram. Instagram is supposed to be pretty soft. They're supposed to
Correct.
monitor a lot. If you get on the right algorithms on Instagram, you'll be shocked at stuff that you see, and it has millions of shares and comments, millions. So the establishment is behind. What they think and imagine is politically suicide. Well, the voters are saying the opposite, right? And social media is a reflection of the people more so than these polls, and more so than these alleged experts. What do you think about that when you see the stuff when you see him succeeding, despite his globalized intifada saying, it tells you that the ground has changed, it's shifted, and the establishment is way behind.
I think the ground shifted, but I think even bigger than this was like, who are the kind of voters who are coming out, right? So there was a statistic that came out that there were many voters who came out who hadn't voted since 2012.
Wow. Wow.
So who are the guys voting for in 2012? You got to think about that. That's Obama, right?
Yep. Yep.
Last time these voters voted was Obama in 2012.
Yeah.
They were Obama 2012 voters, Mamdani 2025 voters. It took them
Wow.
13 years. They were like, look, I'm out of this process.
Yeah.
I am back in because of this guy. Right? I mean, I also like the polling, right? So all the polls had Cuomo winning, except for that last poll, right? And people were calling it a fluke. They were like, like, this poll is, it had Mamdani up by 4. They're like, look, like nobody can credit this. Like, this is the only poll having Mamdani like within the margin. The difference in that poll was that they polled people who didn't vote 4 years ago. It said if you looked at the new voters who were voting, people who hadn't voted 4 years ago, and we put them into our model, Mamdani crushes it. He won the people who hadn't voted in 2021. I think the margin was like 63 to 18. That is an insane number.
63 to 18.
Yes.
Do you trust these polls? Do these polls have much? Are they losing their stock a bit?
I think the science of polling is just so difficult. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, right? Like if people call you for a poll, right? Like the average young person doesn't have time to like respond, right? The average working person doesn't have time to respond to a poll, right? Like if you are doing a full poll, you have to like either take a phone call and like actually go through this whole process, or they're texting you and then like you have to fill out this form that has like maybe 30, 40 questions. I mean, like how often do you have time where you're like, you know what I'm going to do today? This random number texted me a poll, and I'm going to spend the next 12 minutes of my life trying to answer these questions. The average person doesn't do that, right? And so I think it's hard for us actually to get a gauge of like where people are. And I actually think in many ways, to your point, I think social media sometimes does reflect, right, where people's attitudes are. I
Far
mean,
more than
Mamdani's,
polls.
Yeah, exactly. Mamdani videos are getting millions and millions of views. I mean, I think, last time I checked, I remember I probably followed him when he had like 10,000, 15,000 followers. Last time I checked, I think he has over a million. I mean, like
That's
he has
insane.
grown exponentially. And
That's
the
insane.
reason is because the algorithm, right, despite maybe some people trying to censor him, we're like, look, his content, people love it. They keep sharing it. They keep talking about it. Like this is the guy that everyone's trying to get behind.
Did you ever get pulled?
I've gotten pulled. Yeah, I get text message polls all the time.
Okay. Maybe that's because you're in that world. But
Mm,
I've never gotten pulled, and I don't know anyone who's ever gotten pulled, which
mm.
makes me start to think that the whole process is so off. Like literally, you never know. Omar, do you know anyone who ever got pulled? It's almost like where are they getting these information from? And they're probably be far more accurate to compare the viewership if they can get the information of who's viewing these videos. As
Mm.
far so Instagram videos or TikTok videos probably far more better representation because everyone's watching this stuff. Old people are watching it, young people are watching it, American born, not American born, etc. If you just could etch out, where the voters are from, like New York, that'll give you much better information.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think they have access to that data,
Yeah,
right? I
they
mean,
don't
like
have
that's
that.
the
Yeah,
whole secret sauce with Meta and these other
yeah.
companies, right? Like they're not going to give you that data. So.
Tell us about his upcoming opponent. Who is it, and when, and what are the main issues, and what are his chances?
So again, New York City historically has almost always elected a Democrat. So now that he's a Democratic nomination, he's going up against Eric Adams and Curtis Silwa. Curtis Silwa is the Republican nominee. Eric Adams is going to run as an independent. He's the incumbent mayor. And there's a small chance that Cuomo runs again in the fall. I think it's probably unlikely.
As what?
Uh, he can run
Independent?
in no, yeah, he can run basically independently. Like they can run on a third party ticket. But I think it's unlikely given how bad he lost. I think it had it been close, right? Had it been close, they would have said, you know what, take him, give him another shot in November. But I think given how badly he lost this election cycle, I don't see him going into November and saying, you know what, I want to try this again. Because he's already gotten dragged through the mud. I think, the one thing I will give Cuomo is I think as a politician, he understands when the ground has moved from under him. And I think that's why he called Mamdani very quickly, right? Last night, very quickly, called him and said, look, man, congratulations, you won. Like, I know where things are headed, right?
And tell me about the final count as of this morning, or the count as of this morning.
Yeah, I think as of this morning, Mamdani's still up by probably 7 points. So again, we won't get the final results until next week. That is
Mm-hmm.
like, so the final tabulation is not going to happen for another couple of days. So they can actually like get in all the mail-in ballots, do the ranked choice process and actually get us the final numbers. But I probably anticipate this to be, a 15, 16 point race.
That's
Again, people are expecting this to be a 1 point race.
yeah, yeah.
For this to be probably be like, Mamdani probably getting like 56, 57% of the vote. I mean, it's just incredible.
For New Jersey, Gottheimer didn't even get top three, and he is the biggest Zionist candidate out there. Now Mamdani wins. That just tells you what people think.
Yeah, and also, I mean, again, think about the amount of money these guys spent, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Gottheimer spent tremendous amounts of money. He also was the most conservative, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
also think there is this combination between like progressives who are, embracing the Palestine issue,
Yeah.
right? Versus like people who are sort of like, you know, half in, half out, or sort of not willing to stand for something. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
there's a great quote that says, if you stand for nothing, sorry, if you don't have the will to stand for something, you'll fall for anything,
Yep.
right? So like, these people who are unwilling, they sort of contort themselves into silence
Yep.
while watching kids die in Gaza. Like, how can you do that, right? How does your humanity allow you to do that?
Let's now shift to yourself. For the viewers here who are just joining us, you're watching the Safina Society Nothing But Facts live stream, which comes to you Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 2 o'clock. July has a special schedule because of our travel. Our guest is Mussab Ali, who is a Rutgers grad, Jersey City, New Jersey, born and raised, a Harvard lawyer, and he's also a candidate for mayor of Jersey City, which is the biggest mayoral position. Am I right? It's the biggest mayoral position
It will be. It will be, yeah.
It will be. And Jersey City, which is becoming basically mini Manhattan because it's becoming very posh, parts of it at least, and which is the neighbor, the closest sort of distance from Manhattan. And so you may be catching a wave here because your election is in a few months. Mamdani is in also in the fall. So is he now going to put his weight behind you, and are you going to become like a tag team that's just going to create a wave here and be a Obama-like surprise to everybody?
I certainly hope so. I mean, we haven't, we've talked to his team. Again, I was there last night, sort of canvassing for him. We've talked to his team. We aren't sure yet where his sort of like head lies. I mean, Mamdani right now is probably one of the hottest political items in the entire country. I mean, everyone is sort of talking this morning about calling Mamdani, congratulating him, setting up meetings with him. I think the next few days for him are going to be extremely busy. And I think his team has to sort of make decisions around, what do you do with this political power that you've just obtained?
Yeah.
The same way that I think a lot of politicians are sort of thinking like, okay, now that you've made it, like now what do you do with this responsibility? But I think, look, I see this as, for us, it's very important to sort of build on the messaging that he's been talking about, right? And I think for us, we have been, right? And we've been sort of unequivocal when it comes to issues around humanity. We've been talking very directly about affordability. And, we think about these bylines, right? So, we have Mamdani running against Andrew Cuomo, who's the former disgraced governor of New York. And in our race, I'm also running against the former disgraced governor of New Jersey.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally these parallels. It's like, he has that opponent. I have that opponent. He was a young immigrant Muslim who's progressive. I'm a young immigrant Muslim who's progressive, right? Like that introduction from Letitia James, the reason it really made me feel emotional is like, I could see someone in November introducing me like that, right? Like they said he was too young. They said he was too inexperienced. They said he had the wrong name. And like, this is your next mayor.
Yeah.
And I think about that because, I've never seen a politician who looks so much like me and shares so much of my politics. I've never seen that on television before. And so I say this also to the viewers who say like, oh, like what is his Islamic positions? I think take those aside for a second. There are a lot of young people today who are waking up to this news, who are thinking to themselves, I belong in this country, right? Like if the mayor of New York City can be a Muslim, like why would you feel as though, look, I don't belong here? Yeah. Right. And I think that is the most powerful thing about this democracy. And I think it's given a lot of hope to a lot of us.
I think in Jersey City, you said that your primary is in October?
November.
And then the general election. And then
so we have a runoff. So basically the way it works is we have a nonpartisan election in November. The top two will advance to a runoff in December.
Yeah.
So basically for us, it's like a back to back. Like we do November and then we do December. So we're sort of going back to back in our election cycle. But look, I feel very excited about the Mamdani win. And I also think, look, my own personal background is a little bit different, right? Like I was first elected to office when I was 20 years old. So alhamdulillah, I've been involved in the system for quite some time. By the time I was 23, I was the president of the Board of Education, was admitted to Harvard Law School, and then also had a stage 4 cancer diagnosis.
Ajib.
Alhamdulillah. I think there's a benefit in all of these things, right? And I think for me, it was this benefit where I said, you know what, alhamdulillah, like if this is all Allah has for me, I'm happy. But if Allah has more for me to do, He'll give me the time to do that. And subhanAllah, like I feel with this second chance, like I'm pursuing that, right? I'm here in public service where it's more convenient for me after law school to like go do a corporate job, right? I think for a lot of us, like, I understand the math of it, right? I'd be making more money than my parents combined if I went to this law firm. But there's also this aspect of like, I know I have such limited time on this earth. Like I should be doing something to give back. I mean, Muhammad Ali has this incredible quote, right? Where he says, public service is the rent that we pay for our time here on earth. So for me, like I still feel like I'm paying my dues, right? Like I got the second chance here.
Yep.
SubhanAllah, I got to pay my dues, got to be in public service. And I think the time to do it right now is so exceptional. And to be in this position, watching Mamdani win, I think is really setting a model of like what's coming next.
It's amazing that, what you just said is the main benefit, the biggest benefit psychologically for regular Muslim people is that don't overthink this thing. When you see a governor or a mayor and that person looks like you, has a name like yours, grew up like you. There is a psychological element to it that makes people feel like they belong here. When you feel like you belong, you could be more active, right? You're more confident in interacting and bringing your message to the world and bringing your message to the country and not feeling like you're marginalized and ignored. And I think that's because, especially an elected politician, because that means that the majority of the people clicked on your button rather than another guy's button. And
Exactly.
it's so interesting how you're both going against older establishment and, if I could say, compromised people, because these are people who are on the trash heap and somebody pulled them off, right, and said, hey, we'll give you a second chance. They're obviously indebted to that somebody. So they're not really free birds. You know, McGreevey in New Jersey, if people don't remember, he was the governor of the state, and he had a scandal, and he had to step down. And I remember that scandal very well. It happened in the summertime. It happened in the middle of the week, middle of the day, and suddenly they cut the TV and they said the New Jersey governor is stepping down. Cuomo, I don't know if he stepped down or he just was embattled.
He resigned. He did resign.
He resigned. A type of Me Too scandal. Correct. So these are not some independent people. Somebody came in and said to them, we'll give you a second chance, but obviously you got to be our spokesperson. All right. So that's probably one of the reasons why Mamdani has appeal, why you have appeal in Jersey City. It's because they see that you're genuine. You're just speaking your mind. You're not establishment puppet. And I think that's what some people, I've heard many people say, they may not even agree with somebody, but they want to see someone genuine. They want to see what they're actually getting. And when you have an establishment person who everyone supports and all the establishment supports, you're not getting a genuine person who's going to work for you. You're getting somebody who's going to work for the people who really don't need help, right? The people, the establishment who don't even, need a change in their life. So I think that's the reason. And do you know what the polls are looking like for you right now, or?
I think we're probably, somewhere between second and third in our polls. But again, it's very early, right? I mean, again, we are 4.5, 5 months out of our race. And so look, that poll in New York City 4 months out, how good of a predictor was it of what happened in the end? I mean, like,
it was nothing.
Right?
Total
like,
opposite.
meant nothing.
Yep.
Yeah. So for us, like, I'm not as much focused on the polls as I am about, like, how are our volunteers doing, right? How many people are we getting excited about what we're building? How are we doing on social media on some of our videos, right? Like, how are people sort of responding to some of our content? And the big thing for us is, also increasing the number of grassroots donors, right? Like, to me, the most important thing people can do is, like, an individual sends us $5 and gets everyone in their family to send us $5, right?
What's your website?
So our website's ali2025.com. So ali2025.com. And so again, to me, like, instead of one guy giving $25, I actually would rather them like give $5 and have each of their family members give $5, right? Like, that increases the number of people who are sort of attached to this campaign, that care about what we're building, and that are helping to build this grassroots coalition, right? Because we want people, everyday people, to be invested in this race. Like, we don't want this to be a race that's like, the special interests or, like, bought off by some corporations. We actually have taken a pledge not to take any special interest money. So that means if you have if you're a law firm that has a contract with Jersey City, or you're an engineering firm, or you're an insurance broker, we are not going to take money from you, because then you're going to expect us to owe you and say, look, when you get in office, you got to make sure that I get this contract. I was on the phone with someone the other day who was like, hey, I'm an attorney, would love to donate to you. Just a heads up, I have a contract with Jersey City. And I said, listen, I can't take your money. Like, I just want to be very clear with you. Like, you are somebody. I'm sure you do great work. Maybe it's a contract that we have to talk about, but I don't want to be in a position where I feel indebted to you, right? Because ultimately, the person who pays that cost is the taxpayer of Jersey City. And you're an elected official. You have an amana, right, to, like, protect the people of your town. And so you cannot be in a compromised position where you feel as though, hey, I have to do something unjust because of my own personal baggage.
Omar, why don't you fire up the website so everyone could take a look at it? Let's put up this website so everyone can see it. And let's read it, actually, too, Omar. It's Adi 2025. Yeah. And by the way, Adi, Mussab Ali here is one of our regular. He was a MSA brother too, right? You were head of the MSA too, and I was
Have them.
actually cross paths. I was invited one of the years that you were president, and so somebody who's coming from our background basically, and that's nice to see, and saying here that Jersey City is one of the most diverse cities in New Jersey.
It's one of the most diverse cities in the country.
In the country, and that's
Yeah.
basically you have people from the subcontinent. You have people from many various Hispanic nations. You have, of course, the Egyptians, who I would have going to put them at like 25% of the population because of how loud they are, but it turns out they're just loud. They're only 3% of the population is the Egyptians, and most of them are Coptic Egyptians, and they're basically running the Uber and the front-facing stuff, restaurants, food carts, Uber, the front-facing stuff. So we're looking at your website now. Keep scrolling, Omar. All right, we're reading here the website, and everyone gets to see the website here on YouTube. Affordable housing, education, economic development. Keep going. Okay, that is a really nice suit. Go back up. Let's look at that suit again. That's a nice three-piece suit there with some stripes and a matching purple tie. I like that. Keep going. I think that's the most important part of the website is that suit, to be honest with you. Like I told you the other day, I'm a very blue collar when it comes to politics. Okay, let's go to Omar. Why don't you pull up a map to show everyone where Jersey City actually is in New Jersey? Because a lot of our viewers are not from the tri-state area, and they may not know. All right, what is your final message to the people? And do you want to take would you want to come on at one point and do a type of QA?
Sure, we could do a QA.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could take some. Do you have time to take, let's say, 2 or 3? Let's say if there's 2 or 3 good questions right now, we could take them.
Sure, we take them.
Okay,
we
good.
can take them.
Omar,
I'll give a brief like 20-second pitch, and then you can ask the question. How's that?
Okay, go ahead. Actually, Omar, what screen are we on? Yeah, let's hear your pitch while Omar pulls up the map. Go ahead.
Yeah, look, I think that what we learned from Mamdani, and I think what people are trying to learn in our campaign, is this idea that people are tired of the status quo. People are tired of politicians that say one thing but believe something else. And I think honestly, as we think about this podcast, the idea that our hearts and our minds should sort of be connected is a very Islamic principled idea, right? That we should be leading with our principles each and every single day. And that's the kind of message that we want to deliver, because it doesn't just inspire one person. It can inspire entire communities. And with Mamdani, we see inspire an entire country.
All right, very well said. Omar, let's see that map now. And now make sure that we have Mussab on the screen along with the map, and I'll read some comments here. So the first one is, very nice looking website. Second question is your law career. Have you passed the bar exam, and what is your specialty in law?
Yeah. So my specialty in law is voting rights work.
What?
So voting rights.
Voting rights, okay.
Yeah, so I actually worked, I was the national director of this organization called Vote 16 USA. A little controversial, but the idea was to get younger people involved in politics and to vote at their school board level. So school board, for people that don't know, is like just runs the school system. And the idea was, look, if you're 16, like you should start voting for Board of Education, because then you will become a voter for the rest of your life. What we find in a lot of American elections is actually voter turnout is extremely low. I mean, in my election, to be mayor of Jersey City, if we get 25% people turn out, that's a huge deal. I mean, in the election that just happened for mayor of New York City in the Democratic primary, total vote count is probably close to 1.1, 1.2 million people. It's a city of 9 million people. Just think about that.
Okay, let's go with next question on rent control. What is your opinion that rent control is actually bad for the economy? What's your argument that rent control is good for the economy?
So look, I think that there's some places I think there's a mix of rent control and rent stabilized units and also market rate units. And I think that the reason that you have rent stabilization is so that, there aren't landlords who are sort of price gouging just to drive tenants out to be able to knock down the building or to get the like tenants out to give it to somebody else. Right. And I think that's where control kind of exists to make sure that, there aren't bad landlords and bad actors who are taking advantage of just driving up costs so that they can just, move their family members in or get somebody out. And, you would never want to be somebody without those sort of protections in place. So Jersey City actually has a rent control ordinance in place. It's called Section 260. And we're very much in favor of maintaining it and helping to enforce it.
This question says that, yes, Mamdani got attention and people liked his message, but also Cuomo, people didn't like his message. So it's not, what was the reason for Cuomo's poor turnout?
So I think there's a couple of different factors to it, but I mean I'll be honest with you in terms of like on the ground, right? Like you are a captivating, inspirational leader. People are willing to volunteer and donate their time to you. Like they're literally just like, look, I will come out and do it. I mean, look, for me, like for Mamdani didn't pay me to go and like canvas for him in 101-degree heat. He didn't pay any of the people who were out there. We were all out there because we were like, look, we believe in his message and we believe in his story. Whereas Cuomo was literally paying people just say, look, like I will give you money to buy your votes or, buy your loyalty. And like that only goes so far, right? Like again, like when these hearts heal the truth, they're like, man, like, I met some people who literally were working with Cuomo who were like, yeah, I'm gonna rank Mamdani one. Like think about how insane that is.
So it was basically like an artificial candidate almost.
Yeah, I mean it's like an AstroTurf campaign, right? Like they just sort of like put the money and they hope that this person catches on.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing the same thing in Jersey City. I mean, look, McGreevy has raised over $3 million, right? I mean, like this is money that's coming from special interest. And they've thrown this money, they've put up his billboards, like trying to get people to be like, this is the candidate you need to vote for. And like, in the polls, I don't think he's broken like past 30 something percent.
Yeah.
Right. Because people ultimately are like, look, like there's only so much that they can buy into an idea of somebody who doesn't feel authentic, who doesn't feel genuine, and is frankly damaged goods, right? I mean, this is someone who had a chance to have the public trust and betrayed it.
Your previous political positions, can you tell the audience what you did with the schools, etc.?
Yeah. So, Alhamdulillah, we were very successful on the Board of Education. The biggest thing that we did was we got the water fountains turned back on. So when I was in third grade, they shut down all the water fountains. And it took 16 years until I got elected to office to actually start remediating the lead in the water. So now every kid has clean drinking water. We canceled student lunch debt so that kids would be able to eat school lunch. We increased minimum wage for teachers from $54,000 to $61,000. We started a vision program to give kids who needed them free eye exams and free eyeglasses, right? So that if you can't see the board, like how are you going to be paying attention in class? So we did that program. We did a program for participatory budgeting where we actually gave every high school $10,000 and I asked the students where they would want to spend the money. And all of them told us to fix their bathrooms. Right. So there are a bunch of incredible things that I think we were able to accomplish on the Board of Education. And, I felt very fortunate to be in that position to sort of give back.
Mamdani, they campaigned against him in that he was part of the Defund the Police campaign. Are you part of the Defund the Police campaign? And what did he mean by defund the police? And what would you mean if you support that too?
Yeah, so I think Mamdani has actually said, that he's not a supporter of the idea of defunding the police. And I think a lot of us sort of think about reimagining policing, right? So we don't want the police to go out and sort of solve things that they're not trained to do, right? So when it comes to calls for social workers or mental health workers, like that is not something a police officer should be doing. That's not what they get training for, right? And so what Donnie talks about is a division of community safety, which is like, sending out social workers to go out and deal with these issues when it comes to mental health crises, right? Like having other people to deal with people who are having mental health breakdowns, right? And I think for me, I also feel similarly is that, we shouldn't be talking about police as a catch-all to solve everything, right? Especially with guns getting involved. Like, why don't we think about what is the most, approach that's most holistic that can sort of provide, genuine safety to our communities?
Okay. Manhattan had for a while a rise in their homelessness problem. Does Jersey City have a similar problem, and what would your solution be?
So we've seen an uptick in homelessness. I think the biggest thing that you can do is, you can make sure that you have these services to upskill people, to provide them with employment opportunities, to make sure that they can make it out on their own, right? I think that this is something that, a lot of us aren't necessarily thinking about is like, these are people who have a potential to give back towards society. And, maybe they caught a rough break, or like, maybe something has happened that, if we can work and fix, right? Like, I don't think that we should just be thinking about people as broken people, right? I think that we have to be thinking about how do we heal people, right? And I think this is part of our sira, right? It's like, we do not go to people and just sort of write them off and say, look, these are people who are troubled, and so we don't deal with them. We actually should go out and seek out the people who are troubled and say, listen, how can we provide healing? How can we provide support? And how can we get these people back on their feet so they can be contributing members and have dignity as they give back to our society?
Okay, very good. Would
Last
you?
question, Dr. Shadee. I'm sorry. Last question. One more, and then I gotta hop off. I gotta do
No
it.
problem at all. No problem at all. What is your take on the transport into New York? Do you have a say in decreasing some of these fees and getting inside the city? Does the mayor even have a say in that?
Yeah. So this is the idea about congestion pricing.
Congestion charges, yeah.
Yeah, so I agree with the mayor of Jersey City here, which is that I think we should have reverse congestion pricing. So these people who are going from New York City into New Jersey should actually be paying a fee. And the reason I want to do that is that provides us with leverage to actually get some of this funding. Right now,
Yeah.
I would tell you the worst part about this congestion pricing is actually that New York City keeps all the money. So they're charging us to go into New York City, and then they are maintaining all the funds for the New York City system. So that improves their subways, it improves their train lines, it improves their buses. But New Jerseyans who are probably paying the brunt of it get nothing back. And you look at our trains, you look at our buses, I mean, these are in complete disarray. I mean, NJ Transit has been woefully underfunded, right? We have a public transit system that is suffering despite being one of the densest states in the country. I'm like, you think about what New Jersey could be, with all our density and all our potential to build and invest in public transportation. The fact that we cannot do that, and the fact that we're getting no money from these hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars that are going to go into congestion pricing, I think it's a huge loss for us.
Thank you very much for coming on, and maybe we could do it again and closer to the actual primary. So thank you very much for coming, and we look forward to having you back. Inshallah.
Thank you, Dr. Shadi. Appreciate you having me.
All right. Walaikum salam. All right, there you have it, folks, and we've had a interesting summer so far in terms of in the intersection of Muslims and local politics. And as you saw there, that the Democratic primary has been won by a Muslim. And when I say Muslim, we're talking very broadly here. Muslim, we're not saying he's an example. We're not saying he's an imam or a da'i or somebody. We're just saying that he's come from a Muslim background. That's it. All right, so that's the end of that segment. And the rest of the segment, we got about half hour to take your Q&A. Let's do that. And there are a couple of questions regarding the Habaib of Yemen that I'm going to also that I received, and I will also answer in the process. But let's take a look at the super chats first. What's your message to Muslims who are thinking about making a hijrah to Muslim countries like Malaysia? My message is that why not? It's if you want to live in an area with more support in just being a Muslim, then I mean, I can't answer to you the pragmatics and the logistics of it. That I don't know. But the idea of going and living around Muslims, why not? That's definitely good, and probably as fatwa of Sheikh al-Maghili and the ruling on living in a non-Muslim land is it's permitted on one condition, which is you're contributing to da'wah, you're contributing to teaching people about Islam, to supporting the Muslim institutions and community. Let's go to the other one, Omar. The white one. Even if it's not. Yeah, that one's good. Okay. Can the prohibition of riba be relaxed in Dar al-Harb? Says Vasily Osan. And the answer to that by Dr. Salah Abul Hajj is that it is not. It's not relaxed for Americans, for Westerners, for Muslims in England, Canada, etc. He says that it is not. Okay. All right, next question. Can a Muslim woman make Umrah or Hajj by herself? And the answer is yes. She does not need a mahram for that. Okay. Does it become fard for the woman to contribute to the household costs if she works, or is it voluntary? It is always a sadaqah for her. It's not fard. It's never fard for her to contribute to the household. Yeah. Khabib apparently is coming back out of retirement to fight Merab, because Merab's got a big mouth and Khabib wants to shut it. Merab is Georgian, from Georgia. He's a Georgian guy, and he's just like on a roll, and he's dominating everybody, and he's crushing everyone with his stamina and his speed. Marab, yeah, with an E, that guy. I don't know. I don't know if it's a good idea for Khabib to come out. We'll see. Either way, you know my opinion on UFC, but I do follow it to see if Khabib's going to win or not. But he defeated Omar, Khabib's brother. Yeah, Omar Nurmagomedov fought and lost. And Merab, his stamina and his toughness, it's at another level. And Khabib wants to come out and do that, so we'll see what happens. And come out and shut his mouth. Can I buy cat food that contains haram things like pork? Yes, the cats and dogs are not bound to the rules that humans are in terms of food, except that it is forbidden for us to purchase najasa. However, for animal food, can you look up the Khabib Merab thing? Because I saw Khabib's announcement, but somebody's now saying that their weight class is different. So interesting. Why would Khabib? No, Khabib, he put out a video saying he's coming back. I'll get it for you right now. This is just, I guess we're taking a break here from serious matters, and we're going to look at, here it is. Here it is. Oh, shoot. Where is it?
The video's AI, right?
No, come on. Are you serious?
The AI video.
Who said that?
They're saying it's at.
No way. You're kidding me. It was that good? The video was that good. You serious? I mean, it was... Oh, I love the baby ones. I love the baby ones. Wait a second. Are you serious? It was? I was fooled by that?
I don't see anything on when I search it up, so it seems like
It was such a good... It was... that.
that would be big news otherwise.
It would be huge
I
news.
don't see anything on
Okay, so... Wow, we got duped. Because I saw it, and it was super realistic. To the point that I was like... I didn't even think about it. Because it was that... that good. Let me look it up here again. Here it is. Oh, wow. Are you serious? That's really good AI then. I'm going to send it to you, and I want you to play it, Omar. I want you to play this, Omar, because it was that good of AI. And I got duped by it, to be honest with you. Hilarious. I got duped. All right, you look, get it for Omar from, I just sent it to you while I answer a couple of my questions. Khabib, you're still, this is the other Khabib, the guy whose just name is called Khabib on his thingy. It was removed. It was removed. All right. All right. At least Muhammad Nasser says that he got fooled also by this because it was so. Well, the channel did say silly AI. Now that I look at it, but when you're just looking at something real quick. Yeah, go ahead, play that. When you look at something real quick, you don't always look at the channel name. Everybody, what you're about to see is a fake video that just to show you how good the AI is getting. Tell me you wouldn't think that that's actually
America,
real.
I have a major announcement to make. I will come out of retirement to fight Merab Dvalishvili. I've been hearing a lot of talk lately. People are saying Merab is the next me and that he is unbeatable. I respect Merab. He's a very strong fighter.
But he
very
always talks
tough.
like that, though. Maybe that's why he's
I
good.
don't agree with this talk. There is only one Khabib, only one. And I think maybe people forget who I am. So
Now that I was
I
more
have decided
like that's usually not how
I will
Khabib
come
talks.
back. Yes,
about
I know.
himself,
I have been retired for a
content-wise.
while. I am a little rusty, maybe slower than before. I have been eating good food, enjoying time with family, maybe too much time. But even with this, I believe I can win. I know I can win. Merab is good, but he has not faced someone like me. He has not felt the pressure, the control, the power. I will show him what real Dagestani wrestling feels like. I will remind everyone who the real undefeated fighter is. He might be the machine, but I'm the factory that build machines. So Merab, prepare yourself, train hard, because when I come back, I'm not just coming to fight, I'm coming to win. Thank you everyone for your support. I will keep you updated. See you soon.
Okay,
America,
that last
I
part
have
maybe
a
was a bit
major
slow,
announcement to make.
but,
I will come out of
all right, you can
retirement
close
to.
yeah, so that was basically showing everybody that the AI is getting really good, and when something's really, not that important, and you're just scrolling through it, you don't always investigate it. So it just fooled me. All right, let's go to next question. Do the respect we give to Kaaba, like not pointing our feet towards it while sleeping? Yeah, you don't point your feet towards the Qibla. Yes, does it extend to Masjid al-Aqsa? Yes, it does. Yeah, but in terms of if you were at Masjid al-Aqsa, you wouldn't point your feet to it. You would just give it respect. That's all. And adab are things that we consider respect that don't have direct evidences. Okay. All right. Any stories of the awliya who received fath in talab al-ilm? There is a story about a young man who was trying to study a book, and he failed at studying the book many times, so he quit. And then he went later that day and was having lunch under a tree when some crumbs from his lunch fell out. And the ants were picking it up, but it was too big. And the ants continued to try, go up the hill with it, and then it would fall. So he was amused at their effort and thought they'll never be able to get it. So these 3 ants again took the crumb up the ant hill, and it fell down. And he didn't stop paying attention to them, and he started eating again and went back to his lunch. He looked back some few minutes later and found them still going up. And he said, these ants, they don't get it. They're not smart. They're not going to carry this heavy crumb into their anthole. So he's now watching them, almost amused by them, and also wondering why they keep trying, although it's too heavy. He didn't realize Allah is showing him a parable. And these ants actually ended up carrying it and getting into the anthill. Then it dawned on him, Allah is showing this for me. He's showing this for me. And he went back to his studies. And he read the book one more time, and he unlocked it, or Allah unlocked it for him. So the issue here is that you get stronger. So don't think your fourth time studying the book and you didn't get it. You're not the same as the first time. You get stronger, just as these ants. Even in that small amount of time, you got stronger. And that's the whole idea behind what Thomas Edison said: the greatest guarantee of succeeding is trying one more time. You just never know. You got stronger, and you don't even realize you got stronger. Vasily says, what do we say about people who say Abu Hanifa's didn't have hadith, he didn't know hadith? No, he knew, and there is a musnad of the hadiths that Abu Hanifa relied upon and used for his evidence. He didn't write it, but like a Shafi'i's musnad, it was written by his students. So likewise, they wrote about him. And they gathered the hadiths he uses for evidence. Look, the Hanafi school has been around for how long? When did Sayyidina Imam Abu Hanifa live and die?
I mean, technically since the Sahaba, but Imam Abu Hanifa just did Tadween.
He's a tabi, right?
Yeah, but I mean more than 1300 years.
So we're past a millennium and a third of a millennium. A millennium and a third. So if somebody's going to come and say after a millennium and a third, all these people were just ignorant, or they're just preferred to go with Abu Hanifa over the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that's just straight up ghiba and buhtan and arrogance. It is one of the biggest. I'm not saying that Vasily is saying that, but I'm just saying that there is a wave of thought that would simply write off the entire Hanafi madhab as a group of people who prefer to love Abu Hanifa over the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You just have to consider that this is buhtan. You're either saying they're ignorant fools, or they preferred Abu Hanifa over the Sunnah, and yet the Ummah let this pass.
So who had better access to the Sunnah? Like someone who just came like 100 years ago, or someone who was literally right after the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he was a tabi'?
Let's not forget that 10,000 Sahaba established Kufa, and that's where Abu Hanifa got his religion from, including amongst them the two most knowledgeable of scholars of Sahaba, Sayyidina Ali and Sayyidina Abdullah bin Mas'ud. Okay, and you're gonna now dismiss them because you found a hadith 1300 years later? Hada kibr. You're rushing to conclusions. It's arrogance. You need sabr. You need to listen to the evidence from their people, and you need to also think about, does Allah allow his ummah to be misguided like this? The Hanafi madhab is the most followed madhab in Islamic history. The entire subcontinent, the entire Ottoman Empire, the entire who? What'd you say? The Central Asian, which is not the subcontinent. Now we're moving north of them, all the way to China. Massive land masses that you cannot count how many people lived and died worshipping Allah based on the ijtihad and the methodology set out by Imam Abu Hanifa and his followers. Where is your husn al-dhann billah? You think that Allah Ta'ala leave all these people to be misguided? Milky Way galaxy has finals. May Allah give him tawfiq. Everyone say Ameen. Allah give him tawfiq. MBU TV says it doesn't even sound like him. Yes, that totally sounded like Khabib. What are you saying? That was totally Khabib. Since credit card involve interest, is it permissible to use them according to Islam? Says Hafsa. We use the Hanafi fatwa on that, is that the interest part of it is unlawful. But the entire contract does not have to be negated because of one clause. You just don't act upon that clause. So that clause is unlawful, so don't act upon it. And you can continue using the rest of following the rest of the contract. Do hardship expiate sins for everyone? Hardships expiate sins for everyone who remains obedient to Allah throughout. But if a person remains disobedient, then it is not an expiation, it is a punishment. And if a person gets better in their deen afterwards, if they get better, then it's an elevation of their rank. Here's a question from Vasilio San. If the Prophet ﷺ didn't explicitly say witr is wajib, and if some scholars say the evidence didn't reach Imam Abu Hanifa, then why do we have to follow the Hanafi position? No, nobody has to follow any specific mujtahid imam. We just have to follow someone who is more knowledgeable than us. Unless you yourself become a mujtahid imam, and you would have to get other mujtahid imams to sign off that you're a mujtahid imam. But you are not bound to follow any specific mujtahid imam. We just have to make sure that وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ. Do not take a stance in religion unless you have certainty in it. So that's why us ourselves will not do ijtihad and decide what the rule is and what the conclusion is. We don't have the knowledge to make such a conclusive statement. Okay, question from Hatis Kaufman Al-Manzalawi. And they actually don't have a question. They are just blessing everybody with salam and dua. Okay, shukran. Next question is from Abdul Rashid. What's the ruling on reading the Quran for parents? I heard that scholars say that you cannot read the Quran for the deceased. And he points to Surah Al-Najm, وَأَلَّيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. Surah Al-Najm, I believe that is. A human being does not get except what he earned. Yes, that is a general statement that does allow for exceptions. So in the Arabic language, general statements allow for exceptions. And in this case, the exception was given by the Prophet ﷺ. When a man came to the Messenger, peace be upon him, his name was Sa'd in Medina. He wasn't Sa'd ibn Mu'adh or Sa'd ibn Ubadah, but his name was Sa'd. And he came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, unfortunately, my mother used to give sadaqah every time we harvested the food, because he was a farmer. But now she passed away, and she cannot give the sadaqah anymore. The Prophet ﷺ said, you give it on her behalf. So he said, this is our zakah, and this is sadaqah for Sa'd. In other words, she will get the reward. He's intending isal al-thawab. The thawab, the reward of that deed, reaches her. Therefore, the ulama then use evidence of another hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ says, إِذَا مَاتَ ابْنُ آدَمْ انْقَطَعَ عَمَلُهُ إِلَّا مِنْ ثَلَاثٍ. Very famous hadith. If a human being dies, his deeds are cut off, meaning the rewards of his deeds are cut off, except he still gets rewarded and benefits from three sources. A child of his who makes dua for him. Wealth, sadaqah, that is still benefiting people. Charity, that's still benefiting people. Knowledge, that's still being benefited from. So the ulama then, they took analogy from that. And they said when the Prophet says a boy who prays, a son of his who prays for him, he means anyone who prays for him. It's just that most likely the person who's going to pray for him. And he doesn't even say ibnun lahu, waladun. He's just said a boy. So that means anybody who prays for that person. So if I say, Sayyidina al-Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, rahmah will come to his grave. And he will receive in his grave, this is a dua that came to you from so-and-so. And ulama have taken from that recitation of Quran, the good deed of that can be sent to the deceased. Okay? That's the answer to that question. The mas'ala is called Isalu Thawab, and it is accepted with different parameters in all four madhabs. For example, the Malikiyya, they just went exactly what the Prophet said, only charity. The Ahnaf said no, all active ibadah. The charity is active ibadah. So that was a specific ibadah that the man did, good deed he did, but it applies to everything else. In Al-Azhar, one of the shuyukh of the Malikiyya was Sheikh Salih al-Ja'fari, and he used to say, in this matter of Isal al-Thawab, we're Shafi'is. And we believe in Isal al-Thawab of Quran and other adhkar to be sent to the deceased. Why do people say Masjid al-Aqsa was Umayyad propaganda and not a place of significance in Islam? No, I think you may be confusing the Dome of the Rock. The Dome of the Rock is a place of significance for Islam, and that's what the Umayyads built, which is the golden dome on top of the hill. And the masjid is a little bit off the side and is not as glorious looking as the Dome of the Rock, but its position, Masjid al-Aqsa, is one of the places of pilgrimage. The Prophet ﷺ said, لا تشد الرحال إلا إلى ثلاثة مساجد. Pilgrimage for us, or intentionally going just to pray somewhere because you believe the reward is greater, is only 3 masajid. And that is Masjid al-Haram, of course, in Mecca, and Masjid al-Nabawi in Medina, and Masjid al-Haram in Masjid al-Aqsa in Jerusalem. We believe the reward is greater to pray there. Any other masjid, you are permitted to go look at it, but not believing that salah in it is greater than any other masjid. So tourism is allowed in Islam. It's the belief that you're going to have more reward, which isn't allowed. So, for example, if I want to see, let's say, Masjid al-Qarawiyyin in Fez, Morocco. I've seen the pictures. I just want to see it. That's it. Curiosity. That is halal. But if I say, hey, everybody, we're all going to go now because we're going to be rewarded with more hasanat if we pray in al-Qarawiyyin, then that would be incorrect. That would be not allowed for us to do. You're saying something that's just not true. Okay, so that's the meaning of that hadith. Combining prayers because of school. I guess this is in the wintertime because that's when the prayer times are close. It's not really a justification to do so. If you pray dhuhr in Asr time, in the Maliki school, your dhuhr would be valid, but the delay is sinful. Because in the Maliki school, dhuhr is valid, it is ada, all the way until Maghrib. But from Asr time to Maghrib, to delay it into that time is sinful. Likewise, Maghrib is valid until the end of Isha, but to delay it is sinful. So you would be sinful for the delay, but your prayer would be considered ada. It would be considered validly done on time. The only problem is you cannot take that as a policy. You have to ask the school for a place to pray. And if you're in the United States, usually they will give you a place to pray. In England, I think they will give you a place to pray. In France, they will not give you, they're not going to accommodate. Funny thing is that in England recently, a politician, he made a really insightful comment or inciting comment, offensive comment about Muslims. And I think it was Muhammad Jalal of the Thinking Muslim podcast that shared this. And interestingly, there was no reaction. It's like the Muslims are so large in number in England. It's not even, there's no point in even like he didn't even get a reaction. They're so confident in their numbers in England that they don't even need to react anymore. They're there for good. England just has to figure it out, and Tommy Robinson can keep hitting his head on the wall, this Zionist shill. He could keep hitting his head on the wall. The Muslims are there to stay. And we're not here. We're not like some other nations are coming to take over other countries. Go and give dawah. Be of benefit. Bring what's best out of England. Okay. Bring what's best out of England. Bring it back. Bring cleanliness, because I know for sure the Hindus have brought in dirtiness to these places. And I don't mean to be like inciting some kind of sectarian hatred, but the Hindus have brought dirtiness, right? There was a British company, a guy who had a company. He had an Indian guy rise up with him. Indian guy kicked him out of ended up basically like a coup, hired all Indians. We're not supposed to be like this. We have to bring benefit to the places that we go to. All right, so this Khabib character, deleting it isn't enough. You must clearly declare it kufr. You're out of line. You're one of these people who are off. I said it's kufr before that. I said it in the episode before that.
No one even talks about it except you.
Yeah.
You knew about it until you brought it up.
You need help, Habibi. You need help. You're going too far on this subject. I said it very clearly last episode that it's kufr. Okay.
Even in the original episode, like no one even brought it up until you started spreading it and like making a big deal out of it when you don't know what you're talking about.
No, some people they go a little bit too far in things. I'm telling you, you're gone too far. You must be under the age of 20 or 25. Mental Matrix says, how does one achieve humility when they are clearly at a higher rank than other people? Well, that's a very good question. And the answer to that is that you got to know that Allah can swap your ranks. And you have to know that your rank, that you're higher than them, is only the worldly rank, not the rank with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So keep that in mind. For example, a mufti and a commoner who sweeps the streets. And the commoner goes and asks the mufti a very simple question: how do I pray traveler's prayer? Anyone who looks at that clearly sees one has a lot of religious knowledge. One is asking a very basic thing. One service to the ummah is vast. One service to the ummah gets literally negated every day. He sweeps the street, it gets dirty the next day. He sweeps the street, gets dirty the next day. But we know that that's the outer rank. That's the worldly rank. Okay? With the rank with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may be different. So that's how we give ourselves humility. Emna says, Hatis. It's not Hatis. Oh, it's Khadija. Okay, sorry about that. Hatis, it's just the Turkish spelling of Khadija. Yeah, it's I missed that one. Yeah, Khadija. My bad. What is the best way to read Quran the correct way? Find a teacher. Read to him and have him correct you. It's the best way to do it. Read, learn from a teacher, and also listen. I knew a brother who I thought took tajweed lessons. It just turns out that he listened very well to Al-Minshawi. The likes of Al-Minshawi and Husari, they recite slowly and very clearly. And if you imitate them really well, you may actually end up reciting with the rules of tajweed properly without even realizing it. Is replacing clothes with najasa on them in the washing machine sufficient to remove najasa? The answer is yes, because there is a rinse cycle, and then there's a wash cycle, then there's a rinse cycle again, and that will sufficiently remove the najasa. Are some things over which we don't have any control are already written, such as rizq and marriage? Well, marriage you have control over, in the sense that you are the one who chooses to propose and not propose, to investigate and not investigate. You do have some control over that. But what happens to the person after marriage is what you do not have control over. Okay? Khabib, we're going to suspend you if you don't know how to listen. You're being dense. We literally said that the Qurtubi's quote on it was kufr. We literally said it. And now you're just going overboard and being dense. I'm not going to mute him or ban him, not being rude, but he's just being dense. We literally said it many times. So enough with this. Okay? It's obsession is not healthy. Like we literally said. So what he's saying is that the kufr of saying Jesus died in body but not in spirit, and that the Taftazani said this is kufr. He found the quote. We said that in a previous stream, Sheikh Hassan Spiker said that it's wrong but not kufr because he said body, not spirit, so he spliced it up. Well, he brought a quote, said Taftazani said, no, the correct saying is kufr. Khalas, so it's kufr. We submit to what the authorities of the madhab say. And then we splice it out of the stream because we're about the facts here. And if he brought a correct point, then we accept it, regardless of who he is and how he's bringing it. So what more do you want? Okay? What more do you want? We said it's kufr and we spliced it out. Khalas. Love Islam. If a Muslim politician only supports the action of a sin and those who do it, should we still support them because they are Muslim or no? Well, that's the $1 million question. But if a politician, as a rule, if a sultan or a king does something haram, that's one thing. If he believes in that thing, that's a different thing. So, for example, when you had people in the past, Muslim sultans, rulers, governors, allow for alcohol to be sold in public. So did they do that because they feared that sector of the population and they were just sinful? Or did they believe alcohol is no longer unlawful? That's the question. So let's go to Layla H. Salam, could you answer my question? Okay, let's go to Layla H's question. How should a Muslim woman cope if she will have to give 50% custody to the father in a divorce, but the father is an apostate? Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. You need to make a lot of dua, and a lot of being a good example with your kids. And that is something to cope about. SubhanAllah. Well, you did the right thing, although there's 50%, because a Muslim woman cannot marry an apostate. It's fornication. The marriage is nullified. So she would have to make a lot of dua and take those kids to Umrah, take those kids to the masjid, and have them take Quran lessons, and have a stronger will and a stronger prayer. That's what you need. Stronger will, stronger prayer. Okay. What if a person repents from their past sins but can't find the person they wronged? So they should make dua for them. And if they owe them money, they need to give that money to charity. Let's say I robbed someone $500. I can't find him to give it back. I need to give $500 in charity. Is machine slaughter chicken halal? If it actually does the slaughtering and one basmala is said on the whole batch, that would be halal by Maliki and Shafi'i standards, not by Hanafi standards. Hanafi standards requires each chicken to say Bismillah on it. But the key with the machine slaughtering is to actually ensure that it's happening. And that someone's looking and seeing that, a Muslim is looking and seeing that it's happening. I overpaid myself from the company money. Is it haram? Yeah, if you know that the boss would say that you have to return it, then yes, it's haram. If your boss would say, if you have some precedent where the boss says, you added extra $25, no problem, then that's basically he's green lighting those accidents, no problem. But if you know that he would not want that money coming to you, then you have to then it will have to be returned. Jamie Adams, is the below true? Abdul Qadir al-Jailani was asked, does Allah have a wali upon other than the Aqeedah of Ahmad ibn Hanbal? And he replied, no, and it will never happen. Allahu Alam, but it would mean that the general Aqeedah in terms of the Mu'tazila, in reverse of the Mu'tazila, in reaction to what the Mu'tazila were upon. That would be the meaning of that. And if you look at the Ash'ari scholars, for example, they say that the default of their Aqeedah, Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari himself said, is Ahmad ibn Hanbal. However, we do believe in engaging in debating and bringing the proofs of the Aqeedah in a manner that is known as kalam. Right. So that's a fiqhi thing. That's a matter of fiqh. Okay. Not a matter of aqeedah. To use kalam or not is a matter of fiqh, not a matter of aqeedah. And to make a point, all of the ta'wilat, when Ash'ari Maturidi make ta'wil of some of the attributes of Allah, what is wrong is to say that this ta'wil is the exclusive and only meaning of these verses. No, we can't say that. But the ta'wilat are definitely for sure part of the meaning of these verses. Because when the Ash'ari make ta'wilat, these interpretations are things that are true about Allah regardless. For example, Allah's hand is above their hand. Yadullahi fawqa aydihim. When they say, for example, it means the blessing of Allah is with the jama'ah, or the support of Allah Ta'ala is with the jama'ah, or things like these are true about Allah either way. Or when they say Allah created Adam with his power, that's true about Allah either way. With or without the verse, he is saying a fact about Allah that we all agree upon. فَإِنَّكَ بِأَعْيُنِنَا. That means that Allah is watchful over his prophets. That's true about Allah either way. But the error is to say that that is the only meaning. No. And on top of that, alongside with these ta'wilat, the Ash'ari do make ithbat of these sifat. And that ithbat is of the transmission of it, of the nas of it, of the sama' of it, without the tajsim. And who would disagree with that? And regarding the tafweed, yes, we make tafweed, that there can be meanings to this ayah that we don't know. Is anyone going to deny that? Do you know every single meaning of every single verse? No. There are some ayats, we know some things about them, we don't know others. So we make ithbat of the sama'. The nas, we establish this nas as an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We negate what may be of a jasad or a bodily or a jism for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that has physicality and all that follows physicality. We negate that Allah is divisible into limbs and parts because Allah says Qul huwallahu ahad. So that's the tanzih. We call all of that tanzih. And we say Allah knows best about what else is the possible meaning of these verses. Because Allah's essence is unknowable, his attributes are not fully knowable to us. That's a tafweed. No one can negate that No one can claim that they know everything about God's attributes. So at some point you're going to say, this is the limit of my knowledge. I don't know more than that. هذا تفويض. In any event. Okay, here's a question. I've had a chance to meet a Sheikh Nuruddin. Will you ever come to Luton? Next time I come to England, I come to Luton. Why not? Why not? I had prayed and made dua to marry a specific person, but now they are currently in talks with another person. I think that you should make dua to marry a person with the attributes of that person that you want to marry, because it's not the person that you're looking for, it's the attributes. And do not get attached to the person. You can get attached to the attributes. Like, what are the attributes of this person that's good? Make dua for that. What does the nur people talk about in seeing other people's faces? Allah talks about with the dhikr of Allah ta'ala, talinu juluduhum. Their skin softens with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that their skin issues a type of radiance because it's softened. And that's what they are saying when they say there's a light on somebody's face. And Allah knows best. A person always talks about death and afterlife, but they don't do much ibadah. Well, fikr is also ibadah. Tafakkur is a type of ibadah. So let's hypothetically say I prayed my 5 prayers and I sat for the rest of the evening reading about death and afterlife, and then I pray my witr and I go to sleep. Another person prays Isha, prays Qiyamul Layl, does ibadah, and then sleeps. The fikr is actually a stronger ibadah than salah. Fikr, thinking, thought, contemplation, pondering, is actually stronger than acts of worship, because it goes deep into the construction of your heart and your aqeedah and your beliefs and your state. So when somebody is contemplating afterlife but not doing nawafil, for example, extra prayers, that contemplation is also it's weightier than extra prayers. It's heavier on the scales. What if a person suspects another person of sinning? We shouldn't delve. Don't pick at that. Don't delve into that. Don't pick at that. But we can speak in general terms. So if I was to suspect somebody's committing sins, I wouldn't pick at it, delve at it, or investigate it. But we can speak in general terms. Hey, we all need to make tawbah. We all need to avoid sins. That we should do. But we shouldn't pick at it and try to investigate other people and their sins. Here's an interesting thing I saw recently, that when it comes to Western psychology, they study the body and the mind. When it comes to Muslim psychology, they always talk about the heart, the actions, and the heart. And that's what affects the mind. I found that was brilliant, actually. When a person, in Islamic psychology, when we handle the question of how do people feel, Islamic psychology is going to look at your actions and how they impact your heart. What are you doing with your eyes? What are you doing with your ears? What are you doing with your tongue? What are you doing with your stomach? What are you doing with your limbs? That's going to impact your heart, and your heart therefore impacts your mind and the state of your mind. Very powerful. Is watching pornography considered zina? We ask Allah for refuge from that. It's probably the number one biggest addiction that people have, and fitna that people have. But you can overcome these things. Allah doesn't give us a prohibition, except that we can do it. It is doable. And the first thing is people have to believe it's doable. Most people who are in any addiction, alcohol, cigarettes, pornography, of those, the least harmful is the cigarettes, not to make light of it. But people, they don't believe that they can ever get out of it. They're so stuck in an addiction, they can't believe that it's ever possible to live without it. Well, that's the first thing you got to change, because it's not you who are going to make the change. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to make the change. Zina is has two aspects to it. There is zina in the sense of sinfulness regarding the opposite gender. Then yes, it's the zina of the eye. But zina in the sense of that legally, did you commit zina, and will you be punished for that by hudud? That's different. That's a different category. So the legal category is different. But the general spiritual description of sins, yes, there is zina of the eye, meaning you just sinned with your eyes regarding sexual deviation. But it would not be someone that is now classified legally as a fornicator. No. In order to be classified as that, you need to actually commit penetration. And that to be punished for that, there need to be witnesses for that. So that's different. But for most of us, we have to fight for our eyes. That is the number one most important thing. I guarantee you that is the number one, and it'll be the greatest thing when you feel innocent and clean from having looked at these things. You'll be the happiest person when you're able to block this thing from your life. Zain Yassin says, or why is Ash'ari Aqidah different from to Hanbalis? It's a big question, and I'll just give you one of the answers, is that the Ash'ari did deem it permitted to make interpretation of certain verses of Quran, which the Hanabila did not. Which is interesting, because the Hanabila, I don't know if they disallow for ta'wil in verses like Alif Lam Mim, because if you read Tabari, Sahaba and Tabi'een have ta'wil interpretations of those letters, but you have to understand where it's valid is by saying it's opinion, and it's not conclusive, and it's not exclusive. So we're just saying maybe it means this, and everything they said are things that are true regardless. That's why they were comfortable saying it. Okay. So, for example, in one of the ta'wilat, they said, Alif Lam Mim, from its meanings, Allah Latif Majid. Well, is not Allah Latif Majid anyway? So he's not saying anything heretical. He would be heretical, it would be sinful, it would be erroneous if he said, that's definitely the meaning and the only meaning. You cannot say it's definitely the meaning. You're speculating. And you could definitely not say this is the only meaning that Allah intended, because you don't know that. That's where ta'weed is, and I think many people mistake that. They think that because someone makes a ta'weed, an interpretation, he actually means that it's definitely that and nothing else. But no, that's not what the people of interpretation say. Okay. The other thing that some of the Ash'ari differed with the Hanabila is that the Ash'ari love to look at where could a skeptic or someone attacking Islam find an externally or outward inconsistency, where people say, okay, your one hadith says this, another hadith says that. A verse says this, a hadith says that. The Ash'ari, what they love to do is to show that this is not a contradiction at all, which required interpretation. The Hanabila had a different virtue that they were focusing on. They're both virtuous schools. And their virtue was, we only will say what's directly in the text. Nothing more and nothing less. So they stay safe in their religion by that. So sticking to exactly what the text says is a virtue. Showing that two texts are not contradictory is also a virtue. These are both virtuous schools of Islamic thought. Is Sheikh Sa'id al-Kamli a reliable scholar? He's a great scholar. No one can... And he's a scholar who follows the Athari Aqidah And he follows it in a way that no Ash'ari would disagree with, from what I've seen and from what I've heard Ash'aris speak about. He mentions the ta'wilat of the Ash'ari in certain things. And he says that his personal opinion is not to make these ta'wilat. And one of the ta'wilat for that, for example, is the modesty of God. Al-haya. So Allah Ta'ala would have modesty. So what does he do? He says, if you mean by modesty fear of embarrassment or fear of harm, then clearly Allah does not have that definition of modesty. That's how we would handle it too. That's tanzih. Meaning if you understood by that those meanings, then for sure that's not the meaning that would ever apply to Allah Ta'ala. And that the Ash'ari said when Allah says that he's ashamed or embarrassed or not embarrassed, okay, inna Allah la yastahi, or inna Allah hayyun kareem, certain things that Allah says he's shy to not do something, or that he is not embarrassed from doing something. Haya is the word here. So he says the Ash'ari says in this case it means tark, it means leaving something off. Because the motive of a human being who is shy is fear of embarrassment and harm. Allah doesn't have that. But what's the result of that is that he doesn't do something. Tark means to leave something off. So we remove from Allah Ta'ala the concept of him being embarrassed or shy or afraid of embarrassment or afraid of harm, because that's inconceivable for the Creator. That's what we call that tanzih. And then we do affirm the rest part of it, which is what happens when a person's embarrassed? He doesn't do something. You leave off a behavior. That we establish because that's possible for Allah Ta'ala. Allah can choose to do something or not to do something. So in the Quran, Allah says, Allah Ta'ala does not have haya from giving you an example of a gnat, a mosquito, or something greater than that, or what is above that. So that means he does. He does not leave it off. He will give you an example of something as small as a gnat. And in another case, Allah Ta'ala is too shy, or hayyun kareem. He is modest and generous. He would not turn away somebody empty-handed who puts his hands up to the sky empty-handed. He won't leave him empty-handed. So therefore, the meaning of that is Allah Ta'ala will leave off abandoning such a person. Therefore, he will give them something. And he has a video on that, Sheikh Saeed Al-Kamali. It's a perfect answer. And he says his personal preference is simply to say, Al-haya'u min sifatillah. Okay. And that, of course, it is not embarrassment or fear. That's a perfect aqidah. Who is going to disagree with that? And on top of that, the tark is true regardless, right? When we say that Allah Ta'ala will leave off abandoning someone who puts his hands up, or will not leave off giving a metaphor of a gnat or lesser than that, or what is above that, that is true about Allah regardless. He believes that and the Ash'ari believe that. And every Athari believes that. And the only question is that the interpretation of the verse? All right, that's irrelevant at that point, because we both believe that Allah leaves off certain things. He does not do certain things. Whether you want to say that it's the interpretation of the verse or not becomes almost a minor moot point, because we both believe that he has left certain things off. Certain things he has not done. He's told us he's not done them. And those who uphold the ta'wilat, it does not necessitate that he leaves off ithbat, the affirmation of that as an attribute. And Sheikh Mahmoud himself, I had a class with him on this. And he said, no, we establish these things. And Sheikh Murabit, who was our Aqidah teacher, says, yes, our expression, however, is nuthbituha sama', nuthbitu naqd, nuthbitu nas. We establish that Allah said this. And we establish that this is his attribute. Aisha says, why should someone not confront someone about a sin if they are affecting them as well? Yeah, that's the difference. If you are being affected by the sin, then yes, you could talk about it. If you're being affected by it, you can talk about it. But how did you have access of this to the sin? How did you know about it? Did you know about it by spying? Delete it from your mind. That's the key. A person is committing sins but trying to hide it. If you learned about it in a proper way, in an acceptable way. Hey, I walked in and your computer was on, and it was on to this video. Oh, we need to talk about this because this upsets me now. Okay, that's fine. That was a legitimate way of learning about it. But did you learn by sneaking into his computer, opening it up, going into the search history? Then that is spying. That's the difference. So, can I get Botox done to get rid of forehead lines? The answer is no. The only answer to time that we can get plastic surgery is when there's something that we lost that is normally people are born with. People are normally born with it. Such as, let's say, people are normally born with no big moles on their forehead, right? And let's say someone's born now with a big mark. You can remove that. Someone breaks their nose, then you can get a rhinoplasty. If the nose is broken and crooked. Even if the rhinoplasty makes the nose better than it was before, you got lucky. So we can get plastic surgery or cosmetic surgery for that which where people are normally born with, and you're born with, or some kind of deformity happened to you. But to simply make an improvement, we can't. And I hate to say this because I don't want to offend Muslims who did this and maybe they made tawbah or something, or they unknowingly did it. But I'm telling you, and it's also subjective. I just don't think it looks good. Allah creates everyone with normal, natural features. Then people go in and they get their cheeks raised. Maybe their chin pulled somehow. Maybe their lips filled up. And they end up all looking similar, the same. And I don't see what's pretty about it, to be honest. I don't see what's attractive. But then again, it's just subjective. It's just my opinion that it's not attractive. Maybe though sometime later in 10 years, the technology will be so good that it does look attractive. But it wouldn't affect the ruling. So my saying that it's not attractive doesn't really impact the discussion in fiqh because that's my subjective opinion. What if somebody is made fun of because of a feature in their face? Can they get cosmetic surgery? Well, if that's the case, it may be at the level of a deformity. That's possible. That is possible. Okay? That's possible. I mean, braces, for example. Someone with crooked teeth can functionally eat like everybody else, but there's nothing wrong in straightening your teeth. There's also nothing wrong with getting glasses. Though glasses is far more of a functional issue than teeth. But when your teeth are all crooked, it doesn't look nice. And you're not really, it's not really a cosmetic surgery, it's getting braces. So there's never been an issue on braces in Islamic jurisprudence. Is watching UFC haram? Well, the punching parts, I would say, the kicking parts, but the grappling is lawful to watch. All right, now the question is, if I'm not changing features, but I'm just getting rid of wrinkles, is that unlawful? And the Botox is temporary. It's not something that is a permanent procedure. You know, let's ask Sheikh Salah Abul Hajj when he comes. Because the idea of Botox being temporary is... maybe does that change things? Allah knows best. From what I know, that all cosmetic surgeries are not allowed unless it's fixing what would be generally considered a deformity. And Allah knows best. We'll ask the shuyukh after that. وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ. Don't say something unless you're absolutely certain about it. So that's the principle I know of. Now you're saying that you're bringing in an exception. You're saying, okay, well, it's temporary. And it's not actually altering the form. It's just removing the wrinkles. Let's discuss it with the shiur. These things, I guarantee you, every single town is going to have 3-4 doctors, and people just save up for 2 weeks, and they're going to be getting this. But I think we should put a halt on it. I think people get addicted to this stuff. Zuhayba Fried, you know, the Sheikh is coming. Maybe he'll come on the live stream, but he's coming in person to the great state of New Jersey, inshallah. And we're planning it. So I've announced in advance so that people plan yourself to come to New Jersey. Take a hotel here and spend the 3 days with him. If you're a Hanafi, you want to study Hanafi fiqh. Would I be sinful if I pray Dhuhr in Asr time? Yes, you would be sinful for the delay. The salah would be valid, but the delay would be sinful in the Maliki madhab. Can a Muslim be a plastic surgeon who operates on non-Muslims only? No, if it's unlawful, it's unlawful. We're not allowed to do it for anyone. We're not like other religions out there who have a law for themselves and a law for the goys. We're not Jews. Will the intensive be in Arabic? It will be translated, of course. Sheikh Murad. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of good questions, a lot of good discussion. And we got to stop here, unfortunately. Unfortunately, we have to stop. I have to run, unfortunately. But let's say the dua quickly. Yes, I forgot about the Wednesday dua. Let's say the dua, and then we'll go, inshallah. ZFAD21, what's the evidence for leaving the hands down on the sides? No, the question is reversed. What's the evidence of putting the hands up and that it's a sunnah in the obligatory prayers? First of all, none of the madhabs say it's sunnah, they say it's a fadila. Fadila is less than a sunnah. You have a fard, obligation, a sunnah, a fadila. Because a sunnah, if you leave out a sunnah, you need to do sujood sahu. So the proof is that the Prophet ﷺ said, put your hands there. Well, if the Prophet said, put your hands there, then where were they before? They were down. So therefore, the next question that the Malikis bring in their logic is, what did the Prophet mean? Did he mean that it's a permitted, or that it's a sunnah, or a fadila, a virtue? Did he mean that it's virtuous or it's permitted? And did he talk about the obligatory prayer, or was he talking about the supererogatory prayer? So based on how the Muslim scholars prayed, and the companions, how the scholars of the second generation and the companions, the first generation, prayed, Malik therefore deemed that what the Prophet meant was that it's permitted in the extra prayers, not in the obligatory prayers, because he saw from the righteous and scholarly second generation Muslims, tabi'een, such as Sa'id ibn Jubair, removing people's hands who had them clasped in the obligatory prayer, and that major scholars of the second generation who were students of Abdullah bin Umar and Umar bin Khattab, such as Sa'id ibn Musayyib, prayed with their arms down. That's his basis. That's the Maliki opinion on that, and that's the basis for why he said, therefore, when the Prophet said, pray with your hands folded in this manner, yes, he said that. And Malik puts it in his book even. He meant that it's permitted in the long extra prayers, what we call nawafil. Why? Because people's hands would get numb. The blood would all drain down to the bottom of the hands, and therefore he permitted them to alleviate that hardship. And that's Malik's view of it, and that's not the only view in Ahl Sunnah. Of course, we all know the Hanafis, Shafi'is, and Hanabila all hold it to be a fadila, a virtuous thing to do in all prayers. So that's an example of ikhtilaf and difference of opinion. And thank you for your question. All right, let us now. Last question. How do you refute somebody who say Allah's attributes are like the Trinity? Well, the very simple answer is that we are not saying that Allah's attributes are distinct essences. They're descriptions. The Trinity consists of distinct essences. Each part of the Trinity is a different essence and a person. We do not say Ar-Rahman is an essence unto himself. Ar-Rahim is a different essence. No, it's a distinct attribute. It's distinct. Each attribute is distinct from the other, but they are descriptions of one essence. They are not essences unto themselves. Just as if I were to say to you, you have eyes, you have skin, you are 6 feet tall, you're 160 pounds. These are different attributes of yours, but are they different essences? No, you're one essence with all these different attributes. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا فتحنا لك فتحا مبينا ليغفر لك الله ما تقدم من ذنبك وما تأخر ويتم نعمته عليك ويهديك صراطا مستقيما وينصرك الله نصرا عزيزا وكان عند الله وجيها في الدنيا والآخرة ومن المقربين وجهت وجهي للذي فطر السماوات والأرض بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نصر من الله وفتح قريب بشر المؤمنين يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا أنصار الله كما قال عيسى ابن مريم الحواريين من أنصاري إلى الله قال الحواريون نحن أنصار الله الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون والله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم أعيذ نفسي بالله تعالى من كل ما يسمع بأذنين ويبصر بعينين ويمشي برجلين ويبطش بيدين ويتكلم بشفتين حصنت نفسي بالله الخالق الأكبر من شر ما أخاف وأحذر من الجن والإنس وإن يحضرون عز جاره وجل ثناؤه وتقدست أسماؤه ولا إله غيره اللهم إني أجعلك في نحور أعدائي وأعوذ بك من شرورهم وتحيلهم ومكرهم ومكائدهم أطفئ نار من أراد بي عداوة من الجن والإنس يا حفظ يا حفيظ يا كافي يا محيط سبحانك يا رب ما أعظم شأنك وأعز سلطانك تحصنت بالله وبأسماء الله وبآيات الله وملائكة الله وأنبياء الله ورسل الله الصالحين من عباد الله حصنت نفسي بلا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم اللهم احرسني بعينك التي لا تنام واكنفني بكنفك الذي لا يرام وارحمنا بقدرتك علينا فلا أهلك وأنت ثقتي ورجائي يا غياث المستغيثين يا غياث المستغيثين يا غياث المستغيثين يا دارك الهالكين يا دارك الهالكين يا دارك الهالكين اكفني شر كل طارق يطرق بي ليل أو نهار إلا طارق يطرق بخير إنك على كل شيء قدير بسم الله أرقي نفسي من كل ما يؤذي ومن كل حاسد الله شفائي بسم الله رقيت اللهم رب الناس أذهب الباس اشفي أنت الشافي وعافي أنت المعافي لا شفاء إلا شفاؤك شفاء لا يغادر سقما ولا ألما يا كافي يا وافي يا حميد يا مجيد ارفع عني كل تعب شديد واكفني من الحد والحديد والمرض الشديد والجيش العديد واجعل لي نور من نورك وعز من عزك ونصر من نصرك وبهاء من بهائك وعطاء من عطائك وحراسة من حراستك وتأييد من تأييدك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام والمواهب العظام أسألك أن تكفيني من شر كل ذي شر إنك أنت الله الخالق الأكبر وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه والحمد لله رب العالمين ظاهرا وباطنا وعلى كل حال يا أرحم الراحمين. We'll stop here for 2 minutes of dua as Wednesdays between Dhuhr and Asr. Inshallah there is a Sa'at Ijaba and hopefully we will attain that Sa'at Ijaba inshallah. Bismillah. وصلى الله وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Aşkınla arasında yıldızlar kadar zikredin. Uslat şarabından için şu canı aşkla versinler. Ya kalbe şiir